Chapter 3 More Destructive Decisions. That damnable girl has been here for the last hour. He doesn't notice you arrive, but when he looks up from his deep glass of fire whiskey, you're sitting across the bar, eyes cast toward him with a look of dubious curiosity. Those eyes dart away as soon as he sees them, but not before he catches their brilliant flash of color. Granted, his mind is foggy with alcohol. He's lost track of the drinks he's slid his way since walking in here about 2 hours ago. But for some reason, your very presence bothers him. He doesn't recognize you, which is odd in and of itself. Before the start of the term, the Three Broomsticks is usually full of familiar faces. And then there's the way you're looking at him. How long did you stare with that inquisitive expression on your face, that slight crease in between your eyebrows? How long did you wonder what an ugly old bastard like him is doing alone at a bar? You're a lovely thing. Of course you are. That makes the taunt even worse. And young. At that juncture, when girl becomes woman, drunk as he is, Snape can't keep the unbidden thought crossing from his mind that you're very appealing. And alone. What is she doing alone? But that look on your face. He can scarcely read it, but it isn't pleasant. At first, your face are narrowed, just enough to look almond-shaped, and your eye catches the red light of the fire in the corner, giving the swift and vague illusion of someone Snape is too eager to see again. But now he has a second glance at you and sees you are nothing like Lily. Thick, tousled hair, creamy, perfect skin, and your eyes are larger than Lily's, wider, and your lips are fuller. He hates thinking of Lily. When coming up with this plan, he ignored how melancholy and pensive drinks can make you. This isn't good. Snape rubs his eyes and forehead, elbows settled solidly on the bar table. Madame Rosmerta asks him if he wants a refill, which he gladly accepts. After you drink past the brooding, everything goes numb. Or it gets hilarious, or, most favorably, you pass out. Any of them is a better alternative to this. That damnable girl keeps glancing at me. What do you want? You're not admiring him, of that much he is certain. But the interest, the deep, prodding look that he's receiving. What? He wants to say. Wants to grab you by the shoulders and shake the thoughts from that little head. Scarcely more than a child. What right do you have to look at him like that? Getting frustrated, Snape grips his glass with both hands and stares hard at the rough-hemmed sounder for a moment, tracing a grain of wood diligently with his eye, then slowly releasing a deep breath, trying to breathe out of the rising anger. His gaze darts up to meet yours. Surprised, you hold a stare. You smile at him. You smile at him, as though you're merely being kind. You tuck a piece of hair behind your ear, then look away, and he watches a pink tint rise up from your neck, flame into your cheek. Blushing? And not only blushing at that, you bite your lip and twirl a piece of hair around your finger as well. Eyes flicking back to him with a small, sweet smile. Then forwardly, and entirely too appealingly, you slide his finger along your lower lip, casually, as though you're simply wiping a beverage from it. But your real intention is transparent, to bring an unnecessary amount of attention to how full it is. Looking at him from lidded eyes, you mouth, "Hi." Now it's Snape's turn to look away, more confused and annoyed than he's been in a long time. Who knew visiting a tavern would result in actually being noticed by a woman far too young and pretty for him? It's disconcerting, rather irritating, because it's so unprecedented. You're upset that he finds you attractive? Do you? The flirtatious gestures aside, there's nothing concrete here, and he'll never approach you. Won't even consider it. He's not that drunk. He hasn't been that drunk in years. You are merely taunting him. That is what makes him angry. He wants you to stop so he can be alone again with his thoughts. It's too distracting, too uncomfortable. He thinks he should like to take a walk, watch the stars for a while, slip from the flask he has with him. Reaching into his robe, he deposits a handful of coins on the counter and stands, draining the rest of his glass. Then, not giving you another look, he leaves. Maybe you're losing your touch. It's rather disappointing. You want to meet the man at the bar across from you. He looks interesting, attractive in an older, unsmiling, mysterious way. You like his eyes immediately, profoundly black and so full of depth. You have a feeling a conversation with him would be fascinating. All right, honestly, you see his body first. Right upon walking in, his back is to the door, and you're narrowly attracted to the long, lean frame, to the narrow hips and the shoulders roped with stringy muscle under a tight black shirt and vest. So you choose a spot across the board from him and watch his pale face. The way he stares at the counter, so lost in his own head, it makes you want to unravel him. He's handsome in an unconventional way. High and prominent cheekbones, elegant eyes, and a distinctive nose. Largest, but not unappealing. You've always preferred interesting, attractive, as opposed to the classically, strictly socially handsome, and you tend to like older men. So, where better than a bar to meet someone? If you immediately get a boyfriend here, it'll help those sudden, sharp stabs of separation anxiety from America. You hate those feelings. But the man doesn't take the bait. You've thrown out the sexy leg cross, the hair twirl, the lip bite, everything a dozen times. Have you lost your appeal? Or maybe is this guy married? But if so, why would he sit here alone? He doesn't wear a ring. He glances at you every so often, eyes lingering, face hard and unreadable. Maybe it's time to quit. But then, suddenly, his head snaps up and meets your gaze, eyes burning. For a swift, startling moment, he looks furious. Absolutely furious. Then deeply fascinated. He can't figure you out, and it makes you a little sad. It isn't that he's uninterested, he just doesn't understand why you want his attention. Time to make it as clear as you can. You touch your lower lip and mouth, "Hi." He looks away instantly, eyebrows furrowed, expression torn between angry and baffled. Damn, no dice. "Come on, man," you mutter, feeling a sneer curl from your lip. You don't like rejection. Who does? Here you are, hitting on this old, lonely, self conscious man, probably offering him the freshest, sexiest thing he's met in a century, and he's being rude about it. Won't even meet your eye again. Screw him then. He storms out a moment later, huffy, the asshole. You cross your arms, allowing yourself to pout in it for a little. That didn't go very well at all. The woman behind the bar gives you a funny look, like you have something weird tattooed on your forehead. You sigh and drain your rum. This is good a time to leave as any. The cool air feels remarkable upon your face and neck, and your head buzzes pleasantly from it and the alcohol you've consumed. You stand in the doorway to the three broomsticks for a moment, swaying lightly, trying to decide what to do with yourself. You're far too tipsy to apparate safely. Being impaired and teleportation don't really go hand in hand. Good way to get splinched. So you wander for a while, watching the stars, thinking about the dark haired man and the way his cloak billowed after him as he left the pub. Deciding to be safe, you pop into the three broomsticks and rent a room for the night, just in case. Then you continue your nighttime stroll. He should simply go back to Hogwarts. He doesn't even know it yet, but it would prevent a lot of trouble. However, Snape's feet take him directly down the path towards the Shrieking Shack, all the way around the house, and back towards Hogsmeade before the thought of bed even crosses his mind. It's been perhaps an hour since leaving the pub, and he's ready for another real pint, having nearly finished off the contents of his flask. He's significantly drunker than he was upon leaving the tavern, though not quite drunk enough to make it fade into dreams. Swaying and gulping down the last of his rum, he crosses back into the little village and again makes his way towards the light of the three broomsticks. The soft candlelight glinting off your damnable hair catches his attention first, though his eyes are swiftly drawn to the way your coat sweeps off your shoulders to expose a beautiful young body. You stand a few yards from the inn's entrance, staring up at the stars and swaying on the spot. The idea comes, unbidden, of what it would be like to crush his mouth against yours, to hold him against, to run his hands across your skin. He approaches you without thinking it through. His intentions, who knows? You meet his gaze with curious eyes and a small smile. He places himself in front of you, standing tall, feeling impressive. Any inhibitions he had are wonderfully absent. Snape can't remember the last time he felt so attractive, especially as your eyes sweep up and down his long, lean form and your smile widens. What exactly is he doing? He never picks up strangers in bars. What does one say to a beautiful girl? I was rude, is all he comes up with. Smooth. He'll be falling in your arms in no time. He attempts to rectify. In the bar, I regret not having spoken with you. You're speaking with me now, you reply. American. Gods. American and gorgeous. The details of your face are breathtaking. The thickness of your lashes, the moist color of your plump lips, the tiny mole on your left cheek. I decided I couldn't miss the opportunity. There's a beat as you smile and look bashfully to the ground. Before he has any idea what is happening, Snape finds his long, white fingers gently brushing your face, brushing that little beauty mark. Surprisingly, you lean into his touch, warm and swaying. Both of you are swaying. Or perhaps the world is simply tilting around you. He chances a glance down and decides he can't think of a more wonderful place to lay his head that night than your magnificent cleavage. His hand slides down your neck, the tip of his finger tracing your jugular, over your collarbone, and down to the soft swell of your right breast. He's so distracted by the way your warm flesh responds with goosebumps, it takes him a moment to realize that you're talking. So I'm really drunk, you're saying. Are you around that state? I'm in precisely that state, he slurs, meaning it. A small smirk crosses your lips, and he smirks back when he sees it. Then, God, this damnable girl. You press against him, your firm body and soft breast brushing the blood from his head. Your knee goes in between his legs, your arms around his neck, and he finds his hand stroking your back, lower and lower. I don't usually move so fast, you whisper in his ear, your soft breath racing a shiver down his entire body. He feels himself respond to your touch, his hips pressing eagerly into you. It's been a dreadfully long time. I don't usually move at all, he says, even though it doesn't quite make sense. You understand. You giggle. I find that hard to believe, you reply. You're dead sexy. What's your name? A shiver of pleasure races through him at your compliment. Severus, he says, yours? You introduce yourself. He tastes your name on his mouth and wonders briefly who you are and why you're here. But as your soft tongue touches his earlobe, he feels your supple scent under his hands. He decides he does not care. You sneak around back to your room in the inn, avoiding all eyes and laughing together like courting teenagers, which in your case is pretty much true. This man is amazing. He stops you in the cold to push you firmly against the building and kiss you there, breathless and hot. Heat. That's the word. Fire in his every action. His firm fingers sliding along your hips. His fervid tongue exploring your mouth. The hard press of him through his trousers. He pins your arms dominantly above your head, and with one hand, while the other moves beneath your skirt until you're crying out, and he's watching your face flush in pleasure. His fingers are clever, long and white, and you suck one in your mouth as soon as you stumble into the warmth of your room. The noises he makes are incredibly sexy, all testosterone and desire, and he watches you intently with those incisive black eyes, a crease between his brows. He groans as your wet lips pop over his knuckle, as your tongue caresses his fingertip. He's otherwise quite stoic and silent, so these reactions are extremely gratifying. Then he pulls you close, his breath heavy in your ear, and his fingers move to your shirt, sliding beneath, hands spread fully along your abdomen. You're topless in a matter of seconds, and the man pushes you down on the bed to look at you. When he kneels down over you, you grind yourself against him. His eyebrows furrow a little bit, like he's irritated by his own desire. But in another second, he's greedily filling his hands with you, and his mouth comes next, tongue sweeping over your nipple. His hands dip between your thighs, sliding under a layer of lace, clever and skilled, and particularly detail-oriented. He works up a rhythm with his licking and caressing, so that before he's even removed his jacket, you've experienced earth-shattering pleasure and you are laying on the bed in only underwear, trying to catch your breath. He hovers silently over you, watching you intently as the wave of post-orgasmic warmth breaks. You sigh contently and meet his black eyes, fully intending to tell him how amazing it was, but he beats it to you. Good girl, he says, a little breathless, and you raise your eyebrows at the authority in his tone, though you can't deny it turns you on. You almost shoot back a sarcastic, "Thank you, Daddy," but you bite your tongue. All the same, the man smirks, as if he can hear your thoughts. Then he takes your hands and places them over your head. "You're a beautiful creature, aren't you?" he muses lowly, almost to himself, his eyes on your body. "Severus," you whisper, and his gaze flicks up to his face, eyes narrowing wickedly. Both of you know it. It means more, please. He still has it. By gods. It's been years, but he still has it. Truthfully, Snape is a bit anxious about the main event, simply because of the length of the time between this and his last. So he's determined to give you as much pleasure as he can. Off to a good start, all things considered. But after he pushes you to your knees and you undress him, there's a horrifying moment when he isn't even sure if there will be a main event at all. He has to back away, breathing heavily and trying to explain in slurs and between the pounding of his own blood that your mouth feels too good. So he decides to use his mouth on you. You taste sweet as raspberries, and the moans coming from you would make any decent human flesh. You have a savage streak, he thinks, something unbound and feral, something fascinating in the arch of your body and the fire of your eyes. He wasn't lying when he called you beautiful or a creature. There's something wild in you. When he pulls you on top of him as he lays on the bed, you straddle his skinny hips, and Snape wonders momentarily where his shirt has gone to. He makes an involuntary movement to cover his dark mark with the bedclothes, not wanting to see the look of horror he knows will come. But you're paying very little attention to his forearms. Your face is nuzzled in the crook of his neck, your tongue doing wicked things. But would you still do them if you knew the things he's done? You seem to like a little bit of danger. But real danger isn't as sexy as people think. Your lips and tongue and fingertips burn away at that thought, and all the rest of them, until he's bucking at you in desperation, pulling your hair and growling your name. And he makes up his mind to just toss you on your knees and take you from behind, and you finally lower yourself onto him, and he lets out a deep groan of pleasure. You start to ride, one hand grasping your breast and the other firm on his chest, Snape moans, unable to have any thoughts besides you. 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 Your tight, supple warmth, the way your breasts sway, the flushed red of your cheeks, the lust and pleasure in your eyes as they gaze straight into his face. Gods, gods, gods. He hears you cry out his name and clench, whimpering as you write and come simultaneously. He's 30 seconds behind, his pleasure explosive and overwhelming. Gods, he sees stars. And when his vision clears a bit, there are still white bursts in the corners of his eyes. Gasping and sweaty, you collapse onto him, and he goes limp against you. He strokes the soft skin of your arm as your breathing goes deep and steady. Snape can't remember the last time he felt so good, so satisfied, so tired, so tired. His finger hovers in the air, poised before one last sweep against your arm, but it never completes its movement. Instead, it goes limp and drops to the soft bed, useless and heavy now. But with your wonderful weight against him, Snape closes his eyes and sleeps like a baby.